The main strategy for the writing section is predict the question. I've done a lot of that throughout this very difficult writing section. We're going to do it on the last question too. And remember, the whole point of this is that we want to get our brain on the right path. Because if I look at this and just kind of dive in, I don't really know what I'm dealing with, right? These are very long answer choices. It's kind of confusing. And so my instinct might just to be, go with what sounds right. That's harder to do, though, when you have very long answer choices. So, that's worrying. The other thing is I might start to think about, well, what one kind of matches with the ideas in this sentence or the ideas in the paragraph. But remember, ideas questions are really going to be obvious because they have a literal question. This doesn't. So using the predict the question strategy, I know that it's either about grammar or style. So let's kind of branch off here. It's either about grammar or style. And that's important, right? I really want to figure out which of the two it is, because if it's grammar, that means I have to apply a rule, and what sounds right might not be right. But if it's style, then I can just, pick whatever sounds the best and be pretty confident in that. So it really helps me to be able to predict which of the two I'm dealing with. Now, if I look at the choices, they're all long, so it's not really about like picking the shortest choice here. They all seem kind of equally long. Maybe the wording matters. Maybe like one of them will just kind of be better because it's phrased in the right way. But normally if the rule is being tested, I have short choices, right? I have maybe a choice between a singular and a plural pronoun, or between different punctuation marks. That doesn't seem to be happening here. But there is a rule. And the reason I know it is instead of looking at the choices, which aren't very helpful, I start to look at the sentence itself and the overall structure of the sentence. Certain kinds of sentences have rules, right? So a couple that we see are anything with lists. We know there's rules associated with how to make a list. Anytime we have a comparison, right? We have to make sure that the comparison is symmetrical. This is a much more a rarer rule, but it is still a rule that has to do with the structure of the sentence. Specifically, we've got to think about what this piece at the beginning is doing. Far from marking the end of investigative journalism. This is a modifier. We've thought about things like this before as kind of like extra clauses, and that's what it is. It's an extra clause that's attached to the main sentence. So it couldn't stand alone. But when we attach it, we need to make sure that whatever it's describing is right there, right? It's extra, so it's clearly doing some purpose. It has some purpose here. It's describing something, it's giving us more information about something, it's leading into something. So whatever it is, we need to follow the modifier with whatever like the topic of the modifier is. We don't want a lot of space between those things. So one way to kind of figure that out is to turn the modifier into a question. What is far from marking the end of investigative journalism? It's kind of a weird question, but let's see, right? So the answer should be right after that comma. So cooperation among journalists and ordinary citizens is marking the end of investigative journalism? No, well, that seems like a good thing, and they seem to be saying that there's something that maybe is a bad thing, right? Is maybe suggesting the end of investigative journalism. But, maybe we can hear it. Let's read the whole sentence. Far from marking the end of investigative journalism, cooperation among journalists and ordinary citizens has been facilitated by the advent of the digital age through an increase in the number of potential investigators. Kind of sounds backwardsy, maybe. I don't know, it's kind of long, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's wrong. But if we know that we're looking for something that's supposed to be marking the end of investigative journalism, we want that thing to be right after that comma. So is the number of potential investigators marking the end of it? It seems weird. The advent of the digital age. Okay, advent is a hard word, but they're talking about new technology. And throughout this passage, we were talking about how new technology has threatened investigative journalism because people are going and getting their internet for their news for free on the internet. D is just weird because it doesn't have anything really as a topic right after the comma. By facilitating cooperation among journalists and ordinary citizens, the advent of the digital age has increased the number of potential investigators. So it's It's not really getting to any point until about here, and that's not good either. So C is the answer. Now, I think this is a hard question, but I think I'm much more likely to get it right once I think about the rule and I have more of a process as to why the right answer is right, or a way to think about these very long choices. If I'm just reading them, I get lost. So this modifier rule is tricky, but if you can notice it, I think it helps. I think most of the time it's actually going to be even easier. It's going to be more obvious why it helps, but I do think this is a hard sentence. So again, let me try to turn this into a question and really answer it. What was marking the end of investigative journalism? The advent of the digital age, right? The fact that we were using new technology. That's what they're trying to say. So the advent of the digital age has increased the number of potential investigators by facilitating cooperation among journalists and ordinary citizens. Maybe you get this right just because that flows best, but there is a real grammatical reason. It's not just that C is better, it's that A, B, and D are also wrong. They do not relate to the modifier as directly. We really need that modifier to be followed exactly as we can, as much as we can, by the thing that was being modified, by the thing that was describing, and only choice C does that. Provable. Hard, but provable.